Apple's new M2 Macs, and some software subscription public service announcements. This is MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is brought to you by the MacVoices Slack, available to all patrons of MacVoices. Sign up today at patreon.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, the MacVoices live session you're about to see is a little bit different. First, it's not edited the way I usually do, focusing on some of the speakers and then going back to the group shot. Trying to do this in the interest of time because this is also being released as a full session, not sliced up into multiple pieces like we usually do. Apple released the new M2 Macs, and there are a lot of folks out there who've been waiting for these, and they're trying to make purchasing decisions. I wanted to get the wisdom and the thoughts of the panel in your hands as quickly as possible. Also, there are some very timely software subscription announcements toward the end of the discussion that I think you're going to want to pay attention to, as well as just some great tips on subscriptions in general. So, M2 Macs and subscription PSAs coming up. This is MacVoices. Let's go back and let the panel do the talking. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, it's Tuesday night. It's 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time that is, wherever you are. We're live on YouTube at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV. We wish you were here with us because it's going to be a great night. The crew they're already out of control, and we haven't even started the show yet.
Feisty.
Feisty, yes. Feisty is a good word. Feisty is a good word. We have a lot to talk about tonight, so we're going to try to keep it between the lines, but I seriously doubt it. Let's find out who's here, and then we'll get right to it. And I'll take the order as I usually do. Up in my top left-hand corner, Mr. David Ginsburg is here. David, good to see you.
Good to see you, Chuck. Thanks for having me. And how ironic, Apple does an announcement of some new products, and we're here live tonight. So we're going to have some fun talking about that.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I've got to figure out a way to get this show released a little bit earlier than I normally would because it's going to be so ridiculously current. So, So stay tuned, folks. If you're watching in the feeds or want to listen to the rest of the show in the feeds, I'll work something out. Jeff Gammon is here. Jeff, good to see you.
Chuck Joyner, it's so great to see you too. Hey, I totally off our usual topics. I want to do a shout out to Frank. I miss you. We haven't seen you for so long.
Yeah,
Frank's
showing up in the
Frank's
chat
in the
more.
chat room. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's awesome.
Yeah. So
Anyhow, love you, Frank. Glad you're still around.
same here, Frank.
Yeah, super.
Keep on keeping on. Eric Bolden is here, all limbered up and ready to go. Eric, good to see you.
It's a great day today. All my favorite hardware came out. Yeah, it's good.
There's a hole in your bank account coming. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We shall hear more of this. Jim Ray is here, Mr. Panorama himself. Jim, good to see you.
Chuck Joyner is here.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Webb Bixby is here. Webb Bixby is here, and he's ready to roll.
Chuck, good to see you. Glad to be here. Looking forward to hear what people have to say about the Apple announcements today.
Yeah, definitely. Funny thing is, Webb, we had a full slate of topics before that, and then Apple came out with their announcements. So I don't know how much we're going to get to. Obviously, with the background that everybody should be paying extra attention to, Mr. Mark Fuccio. Mark, good to see you.
Hi, Chuck. Hello, panel. We're going to have some fun tonight.
We are. Last but absolutely not least, somehow he always ends up down in that bottom corner, at least to start. Mr. Guy Searle. Guy, good to have you.
It's because I'm so tall. So you have to have me lower than everybody else.
I see.
It's a height thing.
Yeah. And you are podcasting from the future with a new mic, of course.
Big surprise. Yeah. I won't go into what it is because if you go on over to mymac.com, I just did a review on this microphone and you'll see it there.
Okay. That's good. Thank you. Okay, so the topic of the day obviously has to be that Apple today announced with very little fanfare, with only an 18-minute video, new M2 MacBook Pros and an M2 Mac Mini. I mean, I guess we have to talk about a little bit how these were announced. That no event, an Apple keynote style video that introduced both machines. So there were not two videos, just one rolled into one. I mean, is this a good idea? Is this an indicator of things to come? The way we're going to see Apple announcements in the future?
Yeah, I think that this is what we're going to see more of. I think that Apple, unless they have something like absolutely brand new to talk about, that they sometimes have trouble padding these events out for an hour to an hour and a half. So I think somebody there was just like, we can't even get people to come into the office. Let's just go ahead and we'll say, here's the new Mac Mini, here's the new MacBook, 14 to 16-inch MacBook Pros, and be done with it. And then just say, have a little bit of filler of here's the M2 and it's got transistors and blah, 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 blah. All the stuff that nobody cares about. Just let us know how fast it is. Let us know, how much faster it is than an Intel Mac Mini that came out 14,000 years ago. And we'll all just move on with our lives.
Mark, do you want it in?
Yeah, I think I agree with Guy that I think this may be the way of the future for sort of routine product bumps and updates. Because, I mean, really, was there any surprise that we knew there was an M2, that there would be an M2 Pro and an M2 Max? If there's anybody surprised by that, come to California. I'll give you $1 million. But I think this is just sort of a normal update and bump in their product line, and they've shown in the past where they've released iMac processor upgrades through press release and things. So I think the fact that they did a video, I think that's because they've become so practiced and refined at doing that over the past couple of years at events since COVID. So I think that's where it is. Guy made a comment about maybe some of, I would interpret as bad marketing, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But I think the thing is, God help us if it was only going to be 66,999,999 transistors. What could they have done? Instead,
they're not working hard enough.
But anyway, I want to say,
Mark,
hat tip, good job to Apple. It looks like an excellent line of products, and I think you're going to have a lot of happy users as a result.
Yeah, Jim, you're muted, Jim.
I don't think this is the wave of the future. I think this is an indication that they think they have some, way more better things to tell us about in the next couple of months. The way they made a video, I think they originally were going to make this part of a launch event. Maybe it was supposed to be last year, and they weren't able to do that. But I think in this case, this makes me think something more big is going to happen, because I've kind of felt like Apple was heading more towards bringing people in for in-person things and whatnot. And I think new processors are a pretty big deal. Apple makes the processors now, so
they designed them.
Well,
yes, they designed them.
Yeah, that's what I.
Close enough.
Yeah, they're not made for anybody else. So.
Right. Nobody else is using these. There's, probably millions of hours of Apple engineering time that have gone into this. But I suspect, come March or something, we'll be like, oh, this is why they just popped this out like that.
Well, I mean, this wasn't insignificant because it was brand new processors in both of these lines. But at the same time, I mean, was it really worthy of an hour-long event? I don't think it really was. This is, Apple has gotten to the point now where they have a new product to roll out. They roll it out, lots of people buy it, whether they do an hour-long presentation at the Apple Donut or not. So, keep the cost down on it, and in the long run, I don't think it really makes that much of a difference. They get the information out that they want to get out. All the people that want to see the video is going to see it. And, and Bob's your uncle, you're all done.
I'm not saying that I think this was an hour-long event, but in the past, they would have combined it with something else.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point, but they didn't have anything else to combine it with, or so it doesn't seem. So that's why.
Or nothing ready.
What we have.
All right, Jeff, this time it's you.
Okay. So first part of what you're asking, is this the new thing for Apple? This is yet another option in their toolbox of communication methods. So sometimes we will get product announcements like this. Sometimes it'll be just a simple press release. Sometimes it will be part of a larger media event. And this time it happened to be this. These are efficient and certainly cost Apple a lot less to make than like a big event where you're having people show up. So then Jim brought up the idea that maybe this is supposed to be part of another event. What if Apple had planned on including these as part of a product launch event last fall, and it just couldn't happen for whatever reason? They couldn't get enough parts in time. Whatever it was that they had to put it off until now. All right, so they needed to get that stuff rolled out before the next announcements, and so now they've done it. And these things are out. Who knows if we're going with the idea that Apple had planned on launching this stuff last fall, they may have already had the video content done for the event, didn't include it, and now that it's ready, they're like, okay, so we just need to make bumpers for the intro and outro, and that chunk that we had to cut from the last event, we'll put it out as a standalone thing. Done.
Yeah, makes
That's
sense.
a lot of speculation. It may.
Thank you.
It may be true.
Somebody said that the URL
partially
block
true.
for the video had 2022 in it.
Yeah, Barry in the chat room says, per Daring Fireball, the URL for the video has 2022 in the path. So maybe the announcement was originally intended for last month. Possible. Dave, I want you in, and then I'll jump in.
Yeah, no, I agree with everybody that's talked so far about this. This video definitely was made months ago. I would venture to say even end of November, beginning of December, they had this all queued up, ready to rock, and wanted to talk about it, but they couldn't. But let's go back to the products too. The fact of the matter, there was no design change. That's usually the things to think of that Apple doesn't, because they really never they didn't change the design of the MacBook Pro. They didn't change the design really of the Mac Mini. So all this is a processor bump, and they've bumped up the speeds. But it was great to see the love given to Mac Mini. There's a long time that this is probably the shortest time span, I think, since the Intel Mac Mini in 2018 that they didn't do a thing for a while. Now that as well as the giving us a midline Pro model that you don't have to spend a tremendous amount more with the Mac Studio, and these products are going to definitely be flying off the shelves, I think.
Yeah. I guess I wanted to respond to Jeff's comment because I think it's an interesting one that this is another option in their toolkit. I also wonder if, we've all talked about sometimes how bloated and how self-promotional those events can get.
But that's the point.
Well, that is the point, Jeff. But it also, sometimes it feels like it, depending on how much of it they do, it almost detracts from the announcements. and this felt almost like a short form. I mean, everything seems to be moving shorter and shorter. This felt like a nice, tight little product announcement. I think to Mark's point, this was a processor bump in effect. As David said, these aren't redesigned, and we've seen those done by press release. So, I mean, was this just a press release on steroids? I don't know. It certainly was a nice presentation, no question about it.
There was a slight difference. For example, the Mac Mini now has 2 more Thunderbolt ports and 2 less USB-A ports.
That's on the higher end model, right?
On the higher end model, you got 4.
Okay.
Oh, I missed that. Okay, good. So then it is a little bit of a redesign.
And I do like that the new starting price point for the Mini.
Yeah, $599.
Yes.
For an M2.
For M2. Yep.
Yeah.
And if you get the education discount, it starts at $499.
And I think is it 16 gigs is the least amount of memory, or is it still 8? Okay, so it's what, 8, 512?
8,256.
8,256 for $599. Okay, that's still pretty kick ass.
Yeah, it's the M1, the 2020 model was the same. It was 8 gig 256. So that capacity didn't change.
Is anybody going to get one?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, because so I'm only going to speak for myself, but I'm kind of all over the map now. I mean, look, I definitely want the laptop, the Mac Pro laptop, the high end one. But now that, and for those who maybe don't know, my job situation has changed. Now I'm working strictly from home, so I'm not going to be nearly as mobile, or need to be nearly as mobile as I have in the past. So all of a sudden now, a desktop machine is looking a bit more attractive. So now we have these nice, very affordable Mac Minis with an M2 or an M2 Pro. M2 Pro.
M2 Pro, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as opposed to the MacBook Pros with the M2 Pro and M2 Max, but a substantially higher price point. Then we have the M1, the Mac Studio with the M1, the high-end M1's
Ultra.
Max
Ultra.
or Ultra. Yeah,
Right.
geez, too many. So you got to build this chart that tries to figure out, okay, what's the biggest bang for the buck, and not necessarily the biggest buck or the biggest bang, but I'm also for the first time saying, my current M1 is pretty darn good. There are times I can bog it down, but not very often. So, would a Mac Mini with an M2 Pro be sufficient?
Maybe.
Possibly.
I'm still on an M1 Mac Mini, and I'm not planning on updating it. I have yet to bog this machine down, and I've sat there with multiple tracks on DaVinci, and it just flies right through it. And I'm not sure that spending, because the machine I would want would be the M2 Pro, either 16 or 32 gigs of RAM with 2 terabytes of storage, and you're looking at over $2,500 for that. So is it really worth it for me for 30%, 40% faster computer that I would only need that kind of speed for a couple of times a week? And I just can't justify it.
Right. I agree. I think that, for many people, the M1 or variants of M1 are perfectly fine. I think they were making a point, although I think it was badly made, that the powers of where these new M2 based MacBook 14, 16-inch MacBook Pros come in will be if you're doing 5K or 8K video. For that, you need it. There's a hell of a lot more data, and that's why the bigger storage capacity and the bigger I/O memory bandwidth will come into effect. But if you're just coding and developing an app, unless you have a humongous code base, it probably is not really justified until you're at the end of your natural cycle to upgrade a computer. But I think I'm changing the topic a little bit because Yeah, I think I've noticed for the past couple of years they've been doing what I consider bad marketing, which is sort of the PC marketing, which is they throw all these specs out there, which nobody has a clue of what the heck that they mean, and then they show you things of okay, a 5-person company, okay, it's great, that it's a message that you can buy one Mac Mini and pass it around and everybody can share it, because that's what the hell they showed there. They didn't show how it made any one of the person's life
Job
better
faster.
at that
Yeah.
company.
Yeah.
And they've been doing this for years. They throw all these specs out of how many billions of transistors, but okay, maybe when you say, okay, and this is up to 15 times faster than any Intel-based PC out in the market. Okay, we get it. We get it that you've blasted ahead and you're able to make much better products now that you're controlling your own processor destiny. But in real terms and application terms, what does that mean? Does that mean rendering a video goes from, I'm picking numbers here, from 2 hours to 12 minutes? Or does that mean it goes from 30 minutes to 27 minutes? And, they've just shared absolutely nothing about that other than making it's the best, it's the greatest. And, well, we've been hearing that forever. Every time Apple has an announcement, it's the best and greatest because they're comparing themselves to they're comparing themselves to their past generation products. So that's why I'm thinking, okay, they got the point across. This is kick-ass. It's better. It's faster. It's going to be significant, and it's coming in at these attractive prices. Okay, said and done. I can collapse 18 minutes into whatever that is, 20 seconds.
Yeah.
So, that's why I think, this is as exciting as it was. This is not, as lustful and desirous as, we are of, these new products. It really wasn't a change the world type of announcement.
No, I don't think it was intended to. I think it just was an announcement.
That's why they did it. Sort of in a minimal. I mean, interesting today. Apple closed up about I think about 0.25%. TSMC, their chip vendor, closed up 2.5%. So, I think really what this is this is a testament to Apple's design prowess as well as the capability of TSMC to manufacture leading edge world class chips. And back to something Jeff was saying earlier, I think maybe one of the reasons that maybe this got delayed is maybe there were yield problems or capacity problems, because I was impressed that all these units, you buy them today, you'll have them within a week. And I think that's significant, whereas in the past they've seemed to be pre-announcing things where they have multi-week ship times.
Yeah.
And I think that's another good move on Apple. If that's why they delayed it, I think it was good move, good planning.
Webb, we haven't heard from you. You're awfully quiet.
Well, like you said, we got started a lot of people in the room, so I didn't want to step on anyone. Couple of things. Let's talk about the MacBook Pros themselves. This machine right here is the M1 Max, and I also got the M1 Ultra on the studio in my office. So I'm very excited about the M2. I'm not looking to upgrade. I'm very happy with this. Kind of like as Guy said, this machine has done everything that I needed to do and has not pushed back on me at all. So if I was in the market for a new laptop, would I get it? Yeah, probably. But since I'm very happy with the one that I have, I'm fine with that. As far as the Mac Mini goes, I'd mentioned in Slack earlier today that I use the an Intel-based i7 Mac Mini as a server at home. My server needs have dwindled dramatically. I really don't need it right now. Now it's a Plex server more than anything else. But when I used it to play around with the old the Mac OS server software just to have experience with it, but that went away. Anyway, here again, if I was in a need for a new Mac Mini, I would definitely go for it. I have a tendency when I buy hardware like this is that I kind of max it out and live with it for a long time. So I'm very excited about it. I think they're great machines. I think that as far as the presentation goes, I think they did it this way because it didn't justify having people come in. I'm sure that there's the favored writers in the industry that they're getting their private briefings, and they're probably, what I see, they could be embargoed till Friday or Monday on their review units. But yeah, I think that the video presentation is just a good way, another way to present this. I didn't think it justified having everybody come in just for what in essence is a very nice machines, but it's a spec bump at the end of the day. It's nice, don't get me wrong, and it's an M2, and that's a big deal. But I think that the way they announced this one today was probably appropriate. That's my thoughts.
I'm intrigued. We've talked a lot about the mini webs, probably one of the first mentions of the MacBook Pros, and especially the higher end ones. I think that if I remember correctly, I spec'd one out, and I think I didn't take it the whole way to the top, but it clocks in at well over $6,000, pushing towards $7,000. And this feels like that maybe the laptop is really headed for that honest to God pro. That, you know, we've said this before. We all think of ourselves as pros. We all want the power, but we probably don't really use it or need it. Certainly, the people that they showed in the video doing things, they're real pros, and they really need that power. So and they're going to be able to make money back if they buy that machine. So I'm wondering if we're finally hitting that point where a pro machine is going to be a real pro machine, and the rest of the machines are sufficient for the rest of us. The Studio may be for the prosumer. The Mini and the iMac, depending on how many components you want, may be the starter to mid-level. I don't know. It just, I mean, it really did make me step back and think, because I've always had the top end MacBook Pros when I went to upgrade, and now I'm feeling like, you know, I'm not sure that it's worth the money for me.
Can I address this?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, because there are multiple dimensions to this. One is, I think for a lot of the video pros I know, that their needs are multifaceted. Part of it is just the raw compute power so that they can edit and render. And I think what we're seeing with Apple, they have a very modular processor, and they can slap it in a notebook, or they can put it in a Mini, or they could maybe one day put it in an iMac, and it's basically the same level of performance. So what you get by having different packaging is you have ability maybe to have more internal peripherals, i.e. more storage, different networking connections. Apple seems to be going in the direction of, by putting maybe 4 instead of 2 Thunderbolt ports on this generation of Mac Mini, they're tipping their hat and recognizing, okay, the world is going in the direction of having a lot of external peripherals. So previously, what you would put in your cheese grater Mac, as a card, is now a peripheral that you plug in through a USB-C cable. So, I think in that regard, the processing element is basically, from Apple, is basically the same. You put it in 13-inch, 14-inch, 16-inch screen. You buy an external monitor to get size of whatever monitor you want. But the core processing capabilities remains the same. So I think, as an industry, I think people need to have a little bit of a mental reset in terms of, it's famous. Jobs came back. We have too many products. Half of them are crap. A 4-dimension grid, home, home or work, amateur or pro. And, that works, 20, 25 years ago to get, Apple unmucked from, lots of bad leadership. But I think nowadays, do I really need 67 billion transistors? Do I really need, they didn't describe what the clock hertz are, but, I'm sure I could use, get along just fine with, a lot fewer gigahertz on that. But, guess what? That's, these are nonsensical comments, because the device is manufactured, it has its own intrinsic properties in terms of how many transistors, how much compute power it has. And most of the time our devices, they just sit there idle waiting for something to do, except, in video and media places where when rendering jobs come around, they grind it out, at full capacity for a long time. So I know I covered a lot of ground there, but I'd like to, head it back, just asking the other panel what they think about, are we seeing how much of blurring and overlap are we seeing between sort of pro users requirements, and just everybody else's requirements, not driven by the processor, but by driven all the other extra dimensions in terms of size of device and monitor and storage, etc.
Well, let's remember also that part of the reason why we have to have so many external peripherals is by Apple's very own design. They've basically taken the ability of having internal peripherals away from every single machine that they currently make. So if you want to have any expansion, you've got to do it externally. So when the original Mini came out with 2 Thunderbolt ports and was it 2 or 4 USB-A ports, you really limited what people could connect up to those machines. I basically have a hub system where I had to take a Thunderbolt port, put it into a hub, and then hub off that Thunderbolt port just so that I could have enough USB and other ports to do all the things that I wanted. And that's by Apple's very own design. They have kind of forced this issue. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but at the same time, don't tie my hands internally and externally, because then you leave me with not very many options.
So, Guy, look, I hear you on the hub thing. But looking around the room, that's a problem for us. For most people now, we have wireless mouse, we have a wireless keyboard. What is the? I hate the term average user, but what's the average user plugging in now? Even the printers have gone wireless. And how many people really print much anymore? Maybe some of you do. I don't know. Certainly the printer manufacturers want you to. But if I step back and look at some of the people I know that are not like us, that are not geeks, maybe 2 is a little shy, but do they really need 3, 4, 5 ports? And if it's us, then we go and buy a dock and we get those ports plus even more.
Well, that's part of it right there. If you want to have, like I have 2 27-inch monitors here, and the Mac Mini only gives me, even now, still a single HDMI port. So unless you get a hub, then you've got to use one of the Thunderbolt ports to connect up that second monitor. And then you need maybe another Thunderbolt port to go to a 4-bay drive for backups and stuff like that. Or if you do audio like I do, I've got multiple things plugged in that connect up via USB. And I'm a little bit of an extreme case when it comes to audio, but there are a lot of things that people will want to plug in order to do the stuff that they want to do with their Macs. And the new higher end Mac Mini anyway gives them more options than what they had before. And if you don't want to go out and buy, I don't want to mention the name of the company, a $300 Thunderbolt 4 or Thunderbolt 3 hub, and it's a very good hub, but it's also $300, which is like half the price of the Mac that you may have just bought. So, where is that line where you have the number of ports that you need and you're not spending another, $200 to $600 just to get those ports? And Apple should be giving them to us.
I think people like us, we're the outliers
What?
in this.
No.
I know. Total shock. I'm glad you're sitting down, and I'm sorry that I had to be the one to break this to you. Deep breaths.
Deep breaths.
Apple knows how people are using their computers. And I think that if there were enough people that needed a lot more ports on these devices than they currently have, then they would probably be doing something about that, which is why we've seen the changes in the port configurations on the MacBook Pros. But I'm with you. It hurts knowing that it doesn't matter what Mac I buy. I'm going to have some sort of hub dock thing connected to it because I'm not a normal user. I have issues, and I have a truckload of stuff connected to all these devices.
Truckload of issues or a truckload of stuff?
I'm just happy that I can buy that hub, which wasn't the case a couple of years ago. If the base machine had those extra ports, you're complaining that it's $300 for the 4-port Thunderbolt hub. Well, if those extra ports were in the machine, it would raise the price of the machine. Maybe not quite $300, but it would be raised, and everyone would be paying for ports that most of them weren't using. My wife has a MacBook. She uses it like an iPad. It's never hooked to anything, including power. She only, plugs it in when she's not using it, and she uses it like most of us use an iPad. And she's never plugged anything else into it. She does print, but we have a wireless printer. So, she's never needed a port. My mother, when she was using a computer, she never needed a port. I think, a lot of people don't need ports. And the fact is now that Thunderbolt allows you to put high performance, expand with high performance peripherals outside of the box. Yay, that's not something that we had an option of until pretty recently. And yeah, it costs some money, but and by the way, somebody said that Apple doesn't make any machines that you can expand internally. There is still one.
They're one Intel-based machine.
Yeah, they don't make an Apple Silicon machine that's expandable internally, but they do make one machine that is still expandable internally.
So Jim, do you think they'll make
which one is that?
The Mac Pro.
Oh, from 2013. Okay.
No. Their Intel one from, what was it, 2018, 2019?
Very late 2019. The cheese grater.
Oh, right. Okay.
The 2013 one really wasn't upgradable.
Eric?
So Jim, do you think they'll come out with an M2 based or MX based version of that sort of cheese grater to just come out with a higher end sort of product, for pros?
Well, they said they were going to still planning on coming out with a Mac Pro. That was Apple Silicon. What that will be, I don't know. Will it be a cheese grater? My guess is it probably won't be in that same package. It'll probably be a smaller package. And my guess is that you'll not be able to add RAM to it, but you'll be able to add drives into it and maybe video cards. But we'll see.
Eric, you made a comment in our private chat that I think is a good one.
Yeah, it's actually a couple of things. It used to be you always had to make a compromise. You bought a desktop machine if you wanted every bit of performance you could get, or you bought a laptop if it needed to be portable. And now we've got machines where you buy the machine that works with the way you want to use it. And with people doing partial remote work or whatever, you can buy a laptop that has all the performance of a desktop machine for most users, and it's fast, it's quiet. Basically, you can have your desktop at work, you can have your desktop at home, and it's the same machine. It's been a very welcome change. I've been really happy with what's been happening at the low end of the product line. I bought the most base level M1 Mini when it came out, 256 with
I have that one too.
Yeah, and I've been using it as a media machine in the house, and I found I just kept doing little bits of extra stuff with it, and for the most part, it kind of kept up. It did what I wanted to do. I haven't really had any problems with it, and then I started doing a little bit more because I was using my iPad to remotely control it to start doing some stuff while it was doing other things as well. And that I hit a couple of spots where I started to run a little bit low on space. It still worked. I just had to do some shuffling around. I had some big external drives. That all worked really well. So I ordered the M2 Pro Mini that just came out, the base one, because I didn't want to have to wait and configure it. And that'll have just a tiny bit more storage. And I'm thinking it will do just fine for what I want it to do, basically being both a media machine and a way that from my iPad I can have all the functionality of a Mac by just remoting into it. So I don't compromise anything. I got all my iPad stuff. I have all my Mac stuff. I carry around an iPad. It just works really, really, really well. I have to admit that the M2 Max laptop, I just want one.
We all do.
I think we all do.
But they're, the other machines just work. And I've always felt that there are two people that need lots of power. The power users that are doing a whole pile of stuff, and the people who don't know are not spending all their time with hardware. They just want to get something done. They don't live on the computer. They just expect it to work. And a lot of times people end up going with the cheapest box they can get their hands on because they really can't justify spending more money or don't think they could justify it, and then just get frustrated. Apple right now has a mix of products where you can spend the least amount for a machine and have it perform like you're spent a whole lot more money. And just something as simple as taking all your family pictures and have them sorted out by all the grandkids, it's just awesome. I'm really, really happy with the choices. I'm happy with the M1 that I've got. I'm really happy with the new choices. Yeah, it's maybe not a quantum leap like the Intel to M1 was, but it's a nice. I'm just very happy with the mix of machines.
Hey, we have a special guest. For his first time on Mac Voices, he decided to jump into Mac Voices Live. I'm not sure what he's been smoking, but anyway,
and not sharing.
Brad Meyer, it's great to have you here. I'm hoping you can hear me.
I can hear you. Yep, it's great.
Yeah, welcome. It's great to have you here. It's great to meet you. I'm going to ask you just to give the audience a little introduction to yourself, and then you can pile into our discussion of Apple's announcements today.
Okay, great. Thank you for inviting me in. I come here by way of Mr. Fuccio. Thank you very much for the invitation. He and I worked together at Drobo many years ago, and we've been close friends ever since. He invited me in as more of the creative voice for the show. I do a lot of video production, video and audio production. I do a lot of stuff on my own. I also help teach television production and video production over at De Anza Junior College. So kind of deep into the, like I said, video production side using any platform that will work for me, but I prefer using the Mac for sure to be able to do this. So I'm happy to kind of chime in from the creative perspective on the Mac platform and the announcements from today.
We're delighted to have you. We won't hold the fact that you work with Mark against you.
Could I add another historical note here?
Sure.
Because Brad and I have another common friend, Frederick Van Johnson, and so Brad, comes from sort of a traditional, Windows IT background, and he got an iPhone, and then he got an iPad. And Frederick said, "Oh, that's you're pretty soon you're going to throw out your Windows boxes and go all Mac." And Frederick has a good judge of human nature and what Apple products do to people.
Absolutely. I
Frederick.
converted from, well, I try to consider myself an operating system agnostic, where I'm, pretty technically flexible across all operating systems. But when I'm when I'm serious and I'm into video editing and audio editing and production, Mac is my platform for sure. And I know there was a big ceremony at Drobo when I bought my first Mac and admitted that Mac was a good ecosystem to be a part of. And but like I said, I'm pretty technically flexible and can go any direction with any operating system. So.
All right, so you're a little bit late getting here because funny thing, you have to work. But what's your reaction to what we saw today, the announcements with the M2 and its variations from that creative perspective? I mean, we all have our thoughts, but you're someone that makes your living with this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's to me, it's a evolutionary change. It's an incremental improvement over what they've provided us in the past. And, bottom line for me, I have an M1 MacBook Pro. Excuse me, there's not really enough for me personally to force me to upgrade the incremental change piece of it. But certainly it offers a ton of capability for someone who, is looking to be kind of a mobile creative. That's what it's really about for the MacBook Pro. The one thing I did find pretty intriguing as far as one of the bigger upgrades was the HDMI 2.1 piece on the MacBook Pro. I thought that was a good expected upgrade, because it was kind of disappointing that they didn't have it in the M1 version. But I think there's, in technology, there are evolutionary changes and revolutionary changes, and the incremental boost from M1 to M2 is more of that incremental evolutionary change that, and I think it's appropriate, and I think it's necessary to keep climbing that tech ladder, because one of the things that happens too, in general, is kind of one of my general rules is, and this is kind of an old storage analogy, right? Where anyone given a certain amount of storage will always fill it, right? And the same thing is with horsepower of a CPU. Given enough horsepower in the CPU, and people will fill that horsepower space and take advantage of it. So there's this escalating software hardware kind of process that goes through to be able to say, I'm giving you more power and we're going to take advantage of it, and because they're taking advantage of it, they'll eventually need more power. So with programs like Premiere Pro and Pro Tools and things like that, they will take advantage of that extra power for sure. So it's truly an advantage to be able to have those incremental changes and improvements as we keep kind of pushing the boundaries.
Okay, thank you. Interesting to hear that. I mean, there was discussion earlier here about this being an incremental bump, and that the M2 is just a natural evolution kind of thing, and it sounds like you're in that camp as well.
I'm squarely in that camp. Yeah. I was not paid for that response.
Yeah, and that's I don't think it's a bad thing.
No,
I mean, I don't think anybody here thought it was a bad thing. It's just it maybe just because it's the M1 was just this incredible leap forward, and we're probably all hoping that the M2 is. And
much more so.
We need to wait and see what all the benchmarks come out as.
Well, I'm not sure if you guys have answered the question amongst yourselves, but is it enough for you to upgrade from an M1 platform to an M2, or will it be, or what you're experiencing with the M1 sufficient for what you're doing, and you're going to wait for the next generation?
Yeah, for me, I'm not ready to upgrade. I have an M1 Pro, MacBook Pro 16-inch. Very happy with it. 16 gigs of RAM. It's
Yep.
not even
Same.
a year old. I mean, Guy and I have both the same machine, so I don't think I've had it more than a year, and there's no compelling reason to do any upgrades at this point. The machine I love it. Battery life is amazing. I mean, I get 10 to 12 hours. I mean, they're spouting out 22 hours of battery life on these new MacBook Pros, which is, quite an accomplishment if that's the case. I mean, they wouldn't advertise it if it wasn't true. So,
But who stays up that late?
Yeah, I mean, really, only other really things they added was what you get Wi-Fi 6E. So what? I mean, it's just that's still new anyway. So I've got an Eero that does that, but am I gonna really notice much in that bump? Probably not.
And a 25 to 30% increase is really not significant enough to spend, $3,000 to $6,000 on a new laptop. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
I'm coming at this from the perspective of someone who's still rocking a 2019 Intel MacBook Pro, which is still running great.
Yeah.
The M1 laptops when they came out, so compelling, but I was able to say, no, this computer still does everything I need. Now I see these new M2 models out, and all of a sudden I have this thing happening where I'm looking at the new models and I'm thinking, man, that M2 MacBook Pro would be a really sweet upgrade. But then I'm also thinking, if I could convince myself that I'm okay with a 14-inch screen, because I do most of my stuff with an external display, the M2 MacBook Air will do more than I need.
Yeah.
And it costs a lot less. So I'm suddenly in the boat where I'm thinking, maybe upgrade, but maybe not to a MacBook Pro anymore.
Oh, the Air is a perfectly good machine. I mean, I've got one for work, and it's got 8 gigs of RAM, 256 drive, which is enough for what I need it for, and it works. I mean, even the Mac Minis I've got, the M1s. I mean, they scream. The guy has one too, and I mean, you can beat the heck out of it. I mean, Brad, you obviously are doing a lot more heavy duty, high end video editing, so that's probably going to make a bit of a difference. You're going to probably want to bump up some of the RAM. But I know a lot of these people who were using Final Cut Pro and doing a lot of video editing with the machines were 8 gigs of RAM, and they weren't even taxing the machine. I mean, and it's just it really just varies what people are using. I mean, I had someone who wanted me to spec out a new. I work in IT, so they were looking for a machine. They wanted me to spec it all the way up to 96 gigabytes of RAM. I'm like, what the heck are you going to use that for? I mean, it's
Excel.
Email.
No, it's more like engineering modeling tools and things like that. Because those
120 tabs in Safari.
Yeah, I mean those types of applications. The engineering modeling is that's some pretty memory intensive stuff that it does. But 96 gigabytes. I mean, maybe 32 might be okay.
That was for a Windows laptop, right?
Yeah, no, it was a Mac. It was a MacBook, and one of them too.
Can you get 96 gigs in a M2 MacBook Pro?
It'll support the MacBook
And the
Pro.
new one, yeah.
And the new one,
Oh God!
Look at
Mark's background.
Mark's background right on top, right there.
Speed is a question of money. How fast do you want to go?
Well, like for me, I went in and I dove in on the M1 MacBook Pro, and I have the 16-inch, and I put 32 gigs of RAM in it.
Yeah, that's a good
and
jump.
It is perfect for what it. And the more it realistically. Not only was it compelling to go from an Intel MacBook Pro to M1 Pro MacBook Pro, but just the fact that they brought back the SD card slot on because as a video creator, everything's on SD cards, and you're running and gunning, and having little dongles for docking stations for cards and all that stuff, and the MagSafe charging port. That was. They made the right decisions on that, and the new M2 still has all of that. So it's more of an incremental change for me, and in general, and I'm sure we're all in the same boat, being the technical guys that we are. We are kind of the consultant for everybody. You know, they come up, you know, all of our friends and family come up to us and say, should I upgrade? Should I upgrade? Should I upgrade? Right. And my general response is, are you upset with your current platform?
Mhm.
You know,
Exactly.
if your current platform is serving you well, then, you know, squeeze as much out of it as you can. I'm sure, you know, Apple doesn't want me to, you know, announce that to everybody, but, you know, that's common sense.
Oh.
But if it's not serving you well, if you are complaining about things and performance, and you've loaded the new version of Adobe Premiere or Final Cut or something like that, and it's not working for you, or you've upgraded your video infrastructure from, you know, 1080p to 4K and maybe even beyond, and you're, you know, you're editing, you know, multiple 4K streams, then yeah, you're going to need the extra horsepower. But in general, if your platform is doing what it is you need it to do, then, you know, there are other things you could probably spend your money on for this, you know, in talking about this incremental difference in performance.
Did anyone notice in the event today, one of the women presenters, when they're talking about various video workflows, proudly, proclaimed, no more proxies. So,
Yes.
you basically, these things are now fast enough. You can just deal directly with all the raw footage, and it's again, it's I'm thinking, it's been enormous, how things have changed on Apple, MacBooks for video production, and I think 10 years ago people would have laughed at the idea of 8K video on a computer, let alone a notebook. These are tremendously powerful and capable machines.
And especially
courtesy of 0.5 courtesy mainly 5 nanometer silicon technology. That's the secret sauce that's made all of this possible.
Yeah, in particular, like I said, for video creation, the majority of the stuff that's being created is what I kind of categorize as a run and gun kind of environment. You have boutique kind of, and individuals out there shooting and editing, and or very small crews of putting stuff together, a lot of social media content and so forth, and having the power and the flexibility and the portability of that that powerful laptop with you is so critical to be out in the field and shooting and doing what it is you need to be able to do. Very few people are have the Mac Pro cheese grater doing the editing in a standard effects shop or something like that. That's a very small subset of creators. The majority of people are out there are just like me, where I'm out there with a digital video camera, or like a Sony A7 IV or something like that, and shooting and editing on the fly and delivering content to my customers as quickly as possible. So that the portability is the real key, and power that comes with that portability.
Brad, could you comment on one thing? A number of video production companies on both East Coast and West Coast have said that even though a lot of web content is delivered on the web, that the reason they shoot in, originally maybe in 10K, 1080, and then 4K, and now 8K, is not so much that it's going to be viewed in that higher resolution, but it gives them a much bigger, frame, and they can do more special effects and panning and zooming within an image. So instead of having to do a multicam shoot, they can just do a single cam shoot.
Yeah. And that's certainly true, because anything, if you try to upload, 4K video to YouTube, we all know it gets, down-resed and compressed and all of that kind of stuff, right? But yeah, shooting in a larger frame size, like up to 4K or 8K or whatever it is, does give you more flexibility for cropping in and picking what piece of that window you want to be able to show and how to manage that. So yeah, it does give you a lot more flexibility. So having the power to be able to, edit, because you'll have multiple shots and you'll be layering multiple shots. So you have multiple 4K files streaming in as you're editing. So it's important to be able to have that power to be able to do that.
So question for our host.
Yes.
So, question for you, Chuck. As you're recording this, as you do every week, what format does Zoom allow you to record in? And then when you host the videos, and I listen to audio, I'd never really see the videos, so I'm blind there. But what formats do you render to for delivery?
So we'll get into the weeds here just real quick. Right now, right now, Zoom will give me, I record it to the cloud, so it will give me multiple variations. The speaker view, where the camera's jumping around to the person speaking, will only give me, 640 by 320, I think it is.
Old style TV.
Yeah, it's very small. The group shot here with everybody, it'll give me that at 1280 by 720. And so what I'm doing is I'm upscaling using Topaz Video, and then to 1920 by 1080, and then rendering that out for YouTube, so that it doesn't look just completely blocky and terrible. You end up, especially the single shots, end up looking almost airbrushed. But and at least to my eye, I think it's better, and so I'm willing to spend that time. Looks better than just cranking up the 640 video. That's just just doesn't work.
And on your hardware, do you have? Are you pleased with your throughput, or would something up to 15 times fast? Well, they were saying up to 3 or 4 times faster than previous Macs. Would that be tempting to you to do an upgrade?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it would cut down the production time, especially for the upscaling. And I'm looking at some other solutions to that, but that's a whole other discussion. But yes, it would be. But the price becomes a little bit prohibitive just for doing something like this show. I did want to bring the chat room in because there were a couple interesting comments here on the subject of the 96 gigs. Eric suggested virtualization might put that RAM to use, and I think that's a really good point. And also, Paul Conway said, I think people are used to old memory needs, which we've also all had to adjust our thinking a little bit, even with the M1, let alone the M2.
What does that mean? Old memory needs?
Well, the way that the old Intel chips used to handle memory. I mean, and with the integrated memory in the M1, we saw that 8 gig might be very sufficient, where before 16 might have been a minimum. Yeah.
As well as goes back to prior caching, when before SSD drives were predominant. When you still had spinning mechanicals. You'd rather have stuff in RAM instead of on the hard drive. So this is, I think, again, one of these other old thought patterns that needs to be updated, because SSDs are fast. RAM memory is even faster, and RAM on chip, like Apple's doing with their M1 or M series processors, is faster still. So, it obviates a lot of the need for trying to, bulk up on RAM.
As a developer, I think this meme or whatever about the M1 needing less RAM is complete baloney. RAM is RAM. There's not some magical, reason for the M1 to need less of it. Now, a fast swap drive, that could be a reason why you might be able to get away with less. And yeah, in the past, an 8 gig machine was probably paired with a slow drive, so that could be a reason why you could get away with 8 gig. But I don't think, and all the other developers I know also agree that it's really not true that the M1 needs less RAM. One thing that nobody's mentioned, and I actually went on the Apple's site to verify, they are now, I believe, only selling 2 machines with M1s anymore. The iMac and the Mac Studio. And that's it. Everything else is M2 now, or
The
The
MacBook
one-
Air,
available.
the MacBook Air, I
Huh?
think, is being still sold.
MacBook Air still.
so they have a M2 and MacBook Air. So okay,
Yeah.
They're
but
both.
yeah, all right. So they still have that one.
But
Although
I
I think if you click on MacBook Air, they have a big M. Yeah, they do still sell the M1.
But I was thinking earlier in the conversation about the whole work from home thing, and some of the comments here. If you don't have significant photo retouching or video needs, you can build yourself a nice little system with with one of these new Mac Minis and one of the low end laptops, so that you have the flexibility of taking it with you. But you also have a more powerful machine at home, assuming you even need, that more powerful machine. So it feels like, the options for the combination price of those, I mean, that's a lot less than we used to pay for a single Mac.
Yes, especially if you're going to be using a monitor, that outlasts, a mini you connect to it. If the monitor lasts 5 years and the mini lasts, 2.5, 3 years, it's clearly a win to build your own Mac with external components.
Well,
Yeah, I'm glad that they're still putting love into the Mac Mini platform. So from what I've read, and I just started picking up on some of the pieces, they have the higher end Pro chip that you can put in, but they have just the standard M2 on the low end, which still makes it extremely accessible. So yeah, you get the Mac Mini, you roll your own monitor and keyboard and mouse, and you have a very capable platform at a very low cost, which I think is very attractive. And going back in my history, it's just like all it takes is like one little hook to get you into the Mac
Mhm.
ecosystem, and
Yes.
and people will stay with it, because once they realize how everything works together and pretty seamlessly, then it becomes this ever moving thing for you. So I'm glad that they're still paying attention to the low end on the Mac Mini side.
Well, don't forget as well that your options now in the refurb store are going to include some very, very attractive high-end Mac Mini M1s.
Yep.
Or sorry, M1 Max is what I meant to say.
Oh.
So you can, for significantly less than what you'll spend on a new machine, get an M1 Mac that will more than meet your needs at significant cost savings. Onward and upward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Brad, you said you're not going to upgrade it. I mean, Eric already has a crater in his finances. Is anybody else here? I mean, are anybody else decisively going to buy a new machine, whether it's an upgrade or a supplement? Jeff, you sounded like you might be on the fence for one thing, then for the other. Then I'm not sure.
Well, I'm mulling it over, and when I look at the pricing for something that would meet my needs, so it's the middle of the line, M2, Mini, Air, and Pro, 16 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte storage. Yeah, that would totally meet my needs, and it's crazy that I'm looking at something that's like $1,200, $1,900, or $2,700, and all of a sudden that $2,700 seems like a lot more than I need to spend, and I've never been in that position before with Macs. So I'm mulling it over, and we'll see what happens.
But you're one that has an external monitor, so that
Right.
you could use it with any of the machines.
I can take my my 16-inch MacBook Pro out, set a new machine right here on my desk, and everything's connected, and off I go.
Yeah. I mean, and we haven't even started to discuss the cost of the monitors. Whether they're Apple monitors or some of those new Samsungs, or just a Dell 4K.
There's no need for that.
Hey, no love for LG. I have an LG monitor.
No, LG makes good monitors. I mean,
oh yeah,
I've got this. I'm sporting this M7 Samsung that I just bought not too long ago. It was really good price, and I'm super happy with it. It's got a great resolution, 32 inch monitor, and the Samsung pairs with these Mac Minis very nicely. Same thing with the Dells. I mean, you can get the higher resolution Dells on the Ultras, so they're pretty sweet.
And just having come back from CES, it seems like there were a number of companies that introduced docks that will give you the ability to add a lot of connectivity, additional monitors. I mean, so, and some of those aren't, believe it or not, aren't that expensive, especially if they are bus powered.
What was the name of that company that used to do those? Henge, Henge, I think, used to make those docks.
Oh, Henge
they
docks,
were bought out.
Yeah.
They were good docks, but they were bought out by, I think, Bridge, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So but that is an interesting question. Guy, you already said it. I already said it, that we're both using docks. Is anybody else using docks for additional connectivity?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a hub, but yeah.
Okay, so pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
OWC dock
same
and the
thing.
hub, and but a Kensington dock that works really well too.
CalDigit for me.
I'm using an Anchor one, but
OWC mini stack. I don't know. That's a dock. But
Anchor here.
yeah, I'm using the Anchor, but mainly for the RJ45, the network connection. So
Me too. Plus a couple USB ports to go to my ScanSnap and also my Rode mic.
Yeah, and my MacBook Pro, I have a docking station as well, and again for the network connection. But just I have like 6 cables that I want to plug into it, and so they all plug into the docking station. So then when I land at my desk, I plug in one cable and I have access to it all. So it's just that simple convenience.
Yeah, including power.
Yep, including power.
Yeah. Okay, so I heard Anchor, I heard CalDigit,
OWC,
Kensington. Brad, what was yours?
I've got OWC's Thunderbolt 3 dock.
Okay, Brad, what?
Same here. Same here.
What OWCs?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I do. I have that as well. So
pricey, but they last forever.
Yeah, well, then the OWC introduced that new one, where's the no more power brick. It's built into the dock, so tempting.
Well, for me, honestly, a power brick for a dock doesn't really bother me because it's not really meant for portable use.
Yeah, but
so
clutter.
I disagree. I would much prefer that mine didn't need a power brick.
Yep, I agree.
What I like about no power bricks is less junk that I'm trying to or that I have taking up space on my APC UPS.
Yep.
Because I've bought so many of those little pigtail power cords just to deal with that very thing.
Yep. Well, a lot of times it's a separate brick with the cord on it already.
Several of the ones that I have now are like that. But now I have this big stack of bricks under my desk.
Same here.
And
I don't need to turn the heat up in my office. I get all the heat coming off the power bricks.
That's right.
I can open the windows.
Yeah, but realistically, for me, the power brick issue is
we've gone from M2 Pro Max to
power brick discussion.
Power brick discussion. Brad, you were saying?
Well, I was just going to say, the power brick issue. It is when I'm first setting it up, it's kind of a pain, but once everything is set up, that structure kind of stays static.
Yeah,
so I don't have to worry about it too much.
Clutter.
All right. Well, we're starting to wind down on time, and there's one other thing that I wanted to make sure we got to, and it's a bit of a PSA kind of thing. I'll save the last one because that'll just trigger this group, and we'll be here all night. But the first thing, something came up in the MacVoices Slack from one of the members there, and I want to make sure I get this right, that Fantastical is raising their renewal subscription from $39.99 to $56.99.
Yeah, that was
That's a
me.
pretty substantial. Sorry.
That was Web.
No, that was me. I posted that. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't going to call you out, Webb. I didn't know
That's
if you
okay.
minded
That's
being
okay.
called out. So, but you just outed yourself now, buddy.
That's fine.
But no, and the question came up: what kind of notifications are being sent out, and what it ended up? Well, Webb, I'll let you tell the story. Why am I telling your story?
Oh, it's just that, and now Jeff Butts made me realize, and I did a search for my email. I was notified by Fantastical on December the 1st that they were going through this price increase. So they did their part, and I just wasn't paying close enough attention to it. When the 500 emails I get every day, and 490 of them are crap. So, what just surprised me was the price increase 40%. Seemed really, really high. I don't mind paying it, especially if I know that I'm going to be getting additional features or functionality. That's the problem with the subscription model, is that you don't know if you're paying more to get more, or whether you're paying more to get the same thing that you had last week. So, but that was the only thing. I still use the program. I use it every day. It is my number one calendar program. There's one thing that I wish that they did. We were talking about printing earlier. I do print off my calendar for my office use. I print off the week, and BusyCal does the colored blocks, whereas Fantastical only does a line with the calendar entry. I wish they'd do that differently, but other than that, it just caught me by surprise. I wish that I got a discipline now that I put an entry in my calendar. I talked about that on the Slack too, but just so I know a year from now that I'm going to be having another subscription renewal. So I don't know if I touched all the points that you wanted, Chuck, but that's what I recall, the things that irked me at the time.
Well, the question, I think, originally was that you didn't receive a notification, and what you found out was that you had received two notifications of the upcoming price change, but that they'd been designated spam. And that's sort of the PSA that I want to get out there to folks is, you need to check your spam folders a little bit, especially if you have subscriptions, and if this is going to become a thing with a substantial price increase, you want to find out ahead of time and not afterwards.
The notice that I got December 1st was from FlexiBits themselves, the publisher of Fantastical, and then the one that I got this week was through the App Store and through that notification. So yeah,
I have a
go ahead.
I have a question about this. I thought, and maybe I'm dated, or maybe I'm just not current, but I thought one of the complaints about the Apple App Store was Apple didn't share contact information with anybody. So given that you got an update, you said from the developer, has Apple changed and they relented, so they are now sharing contact information, or
No.
is there some other way that they knew you? That you somehow registered with them directly so that they knew to send you that email, Webb?
Yeah, as part of that subscription model, as I recall, is that you actually do it through FlexiBits, and I did it through the Apple login process. So maybe that could have been part of the reason to it. But the renewal itself, the handling of the financial transaction, is actually done through the App Store itself.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because I know that, this is the bane of all sorts of companies' existence, whether they be software developers or hardware developers, is just getting their users to register. And I know, had to Brad over there, that one of the things we did over at Drobo is we give people, this is way back when, this is 10 years or a dozen years ago, we give people an additional couple months on warranty if they would register. So maybe that's what happened with you somehow. But
I can tell you exactly what happened.
Please.
And this is coming from someone who's a Fantastical and Card Hop user. So regardless of whether or not you're paying through the App Store for the app, you are setting up a Fantastical account, because that account is what's managing your data syncing, and then gives you access to the other features, like like being able to do a Calendly-ish appointment setup thing. That's a Fantastical server thing. So when you set up that Fantastical
They
specific
capture,
account,
that's when
you're doing
that's
that
how
through
they
them, and they're
capture
capturing
information.
your information.
Okay, got it.
Okay, good. Thank you, Jeff. That's good.
Sure.
That makes it again, this is I'm not questioning the price increase. That's something that that's between Fantastical and web
Their
and all the
users.
users.
Yeah.
But it's the notification thing. One of the other MacVoices Slack members said that apparently Strava is sort of in the same boat. They're going to do a substantial price increase, but somebody has said it's going to be double. It doesn't appear that there's an official price increase out there, and it hasn't been announced yet. But if you are a Strava user, you may want to watch your email to see what the story is there.
I'm not a Strava user. What is Strava?
Do you play one on TV?
Well, I play all sorts of things, but not on TV.
Okay.
It's
We're not
a
gonna get into
fitness
that.
app.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you, Jeff. Yeah. So, but I mean that holds true to everything. And Webb said it. Ironically, put an item on your calendar. And if it happens to be Fantastical, then that's good. But put a calendar item out there that you subscribe to this, and give yourself a couple weeks notice to make sure that you're paying attention.
I have all of my subscription renewals on my calendar, and I also have them in OmniFocus. So I have double notifications on my own for every subscription.
There you go. The Jeff Gammett model of subscriptions.
And do you ever decide, no, it's not worth that much, I'm going to kill this thing?
Yeah. Yeah. Occasionally.
Are you judicious on what you subscribe to?
Well, yeah. I have that set up so that I have a reminder that if there's something I'm not using anymore, that I better go in and cancel the subscription. And yeah, I've done that with a few apps. Generally speaking, though, that doesn't happen, because it turns out that the apps that I'm subscribing to are the ones that I actually really need. So I like, in that case, to know that the renewal is coming up, so that I can be watching for the charge either through the App Store or just like on my credit card.
So in other words, you carefully vet the apps that you subscribe to. You don't promiscuously subscribe to apps.
I do not promiscuously subscribe. Not at all.
But Mark, and the other thing, I have to give everybody credit here, except for maybe Strava, because I'm not a Strava user, so I don't know exactly what's happening there. But at least some of these companies are emailing you some time ahead of time to let you make that decision. I can think of one service that I will not mention that I got stuck with last year, because I got an email, saying thank you for your renewal, and I was never reminded that it was coming up. Now, would I have canceled that one? Honestly, I was on the bubble. It's not a tragedy that I got charged for it, but I was more unhappy with the fact that I hadn't been notified than of the renewal itself. So again, my fault. I should have had it on a calendar, or I should have been paying more attention to it. So I need to follow a little more of Jeff's model. But
hey Chuck, another thing on the Fantastical subscription.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of people, even that are subscribing to Fantastical service, that don't realize that includes CardHop. So you are getting two apps for that. Now, I'm not saying that to justify away the price increase. Whether or not that's a valid price increase, I don't know. It maybe is, maybe isn't. But I am getting Fantastical and CardHop, which I use both every single day.
CardHop, that's their scanner, app?
No, that's their alternate interface for contacts.
Okay.
There might be a card scanner feature in it. I should probably look. I may not be using all the features of an app I'm paying for.
Cheap.
It's exactly like me. Those last 250 megahertz, I just don't use. Can I get
See?
some?
You're just wasting those bits.
Mark has really been upset over the transistors and the megahertz tonight. I don't know what it is.
No, it's an ongoing trend. About every other Apple event on this, I make the complaint that they come out there with all these facts and numbers that mean absolutely nothing, instead of focusing on why this product is going to make your life better. And here's an example why. It used to take this amount of time to render, and now you can do it in 27.5% of that time. So I think it's the de-worsification of Apple marketing, because Steve Jobs didn't do this, and since then it's slowly crept in more and more and more worthless facts. Oh, this must be better. I'm gonna buy this thing because it has 67 billion transistors. What does it do for me? And they're not answering that question, except maybe on the Apple Watch or the iPhone. But as far as Mac marketing, I think it's horrible. And just switch. We've had recently a bunch of stories about how the Apple, the new iPhone, the SOS satellite services, come out and save people. So they actually do a good job of communicating what the benefit of this new feature is. For Mac stuff, I think they're just they're even dumber than Windows, because I think this has been something in our Slack discussion too. They're just like Windows Vista. You cut and paste. You do this. I paste something into an app. Do you want to allow the paste? Yes, I do. You stupid moron. Can't you decide this with all your machine learning? There's some stuff Apple is doing that they've taken giant steps backward. I'm a shareholder. They do lots of wonderful things, but on some things, they just go through some really rough growing pains on taking a step back, like all the security stuff in Ventura. But
Brad,
don't get me started. Don't get me started. That's
Brad,
just
was he this
overview.
grouchy when you worked with him?
Oh yes, oh yes. This is not a change.
So, at the risk of enabling or encouraging Mark, OMG, CardHop does have business card scanning. I didn't know, and the only reason I checked is because you mentioned it.
Thank you, Jeff. You owe me a beer if we ever get to meet in person. In the next couple of years.
All
Go
right,
to MacStock.
I'll put it in Fantastical 2 years from today. If we haven't met yet, I don't owe you a beer.
Eric?
I was going to say Apple, under your Apple ID, will let you view a list of all of your subscriptions, both the active and the inactive ones, and it will tell you when they are going to expire, what the price was, and what I find I do is, for some of the apps where it's a little iffy or I haven't tried it before, is I will pay for a subscription, cancel it right away, and then it's good until it expires. And you can still go into settings and see when it will expire. And if you really, really like it, you can then, subscribe again or renew or whatever. But it's kind of nice. It gives you a list of everything. It lets you know what you've done in the past, reminds you that you tried it and didn't like it, or that you tried it, you really liked it, and then all of a sudden you notice you don't have it anymore. And it works well.
That's an interesting little hack to it. I like that. Unsubscribe right away and then resubscribe if you want to or need to.
Especially for the yearly ones, that works well.
Yeah. Some of those software vendors have caught on to that, and if you have a trial and you unsubscribe and you cancel it, it cancels the trial too.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate, David. Yeah. If you've made that decision.
Yeah, I agree.
Or shame on them. They should offer a decent eval period instead of forcing people to look for backdoors like this.
Well, I've been pretty happy with the trials, but in my case, it'll be something like I'll be on a hiking trail or something, and I don't know when I'm next going to go outside and get exercise, but I'm willing to pay for a 1 year or a 1 month subscription to a hiking app that lets me see all the trails. I just cancel it right away because it might be 6 months before I need it again. It's good for the entire time I'm there. The vendor gets their month. I'm happy with what I've got. I don't have to remember to cancel it later.
I understand that, and that's what I'm saying is instead they should offer a free, 30-day, 45-day, 21-day eval period instead of forcing people to go through. But I guess maybe that may be a limitation of the App Store, instead. So we need to blame that on Apple, not the vendors.
Apple doesn't allow that.
What doesn't allow what that length of time, Jim?
What Mark is saying, there's no free trials in the App Store. That's Apple policy.
Sorry. Right.
It's not the the developer. And what Eric's saying will work with any app that's got a subscription in the App Store because that's Apple policy. So somebody was saying that might not work with some apps. Well, that would be apps that were doing this outside of the App Store, where usually you can get a free trial. I'm confused I was looking at FlexiBit's website and at the App Store, and it seems like you can sign up for an account on their website or in the App Store, and I thought Apple didn't allow that sort of thing. So I'm confused.
Well, they can't stop developers from offering the same kind of subscription on their own websites.
It's just the price. The pricing has to be equivalent.
Yes, they absolutely can. If it's in the iOS store, that was the whole thing with Hey and some other stuff that you can't pay outside of the App Store.
I thought it was you couldn't link back to it, but I can't see any reason why you couldn't offer it.
No, you cannot take money for a service for on the iOS App Store outside.
I think, and Jeff, I'm going to ask you to help me on this regarding Fantastical itself. Some of the functionality that they have is a fancy scheduling capability to schedule meetings with other people that kind of goes outside the Macosphere, if you will. It also allows you to do things like set up Zoom meetings and stuff like that. And it's where you inside the Fantastical app itself, you can click that button and it'll fire up Zoom and get you all connected and all that. And I think it's because of that capability that they go kind of outside the Apple ecosystem. But remember, Apple's still collecting the revenues for it, so they're still getting their 30% commission, if you will. Jeff, did I explain that right?
I think so. And honestly, I'd have to go and double check, but I'm pretty sure that when you pay for a Fantastical, to be fair, we should call it a FlexiBits subscription since it includes two apps.
You're right.
I believe you're paying through the App Store, and the part that I know stays outside the App Store is not money specific, and that's the part that handles all of these other features, like you're talking about, the collaboration things, the ability to link back in to things like Zoom. And for example, when Chuck gives us the information for each week's show, that I put into the notes for the Fantastical appointment.
Yeah.
And it automatically detects the Zoom link, and then just gives me right in the menu bar a little button I can click, and when it's time to join the meeting, and then it handles everything else.
In FlexiBits, the feature is called openings. We don't have to go through the whole explanation what it does, but it allows you to check schedules for other people, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, they have a lot of that stuff in their scheduling and collaboration features.
I don't want to. I'm not calling anybody out here. I'm just using this as an example. But Telestream's ScreenFlow is in the App Store, but you can also buy it from the developer for the same price.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if
that's a Mac app.
That's a Mac app. Okay.
FlexiBits apps are Mac as well.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I know there's a difference on ScreenFlow, but yeah. So. Hey, one last PSA, and I'm going to try not to let this ignite into a huge discussion. But if you haven't been paying attention, Twitter just today has stated that they basically have stopped. Well, I guess they're starting to enforce a restriction on APIs, and so some third-party Twitter clients will not work any longer. So if you're following me, if you're following any of our panel members on Twitter on a third-party app, they're still there. Well, if they decide they're still there, but if that app is broken, you can still use the Twitter app. You can still use Tweetbot on the web. I'm not sure if this breaks all third-party apps or not, but I think it's worth mentioning just because there's been so much controversy around Twitter. And if you're not paying attention, it's not the app developer's fault. It's Twitter's doing itself.
Yeah, TweetDeck on the web is still working.
But that's a Twitter product.
Twitter owns it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Twitter's statement about this. Twitter is a lying sack of liars, full of liars that are lying about lying.
See, I knew
and you
this
have
would
no
happen.
idea how difficult it was for me to keep that family friendly.
They're a bunch of lying louses. You forgot to somehow work that in there, Jeff.
I did. I forgot about the lying louses. Yeah.
So anyway, see, I'm trying, folks. I'm trying. But yeah, so just be aware. If you wish to continue using Twitter and communicating with it, then you're going to need to use its app.
Chuck, can I add a little legit PSA bit to that?
Sure.
Developers of the apps that have been dirt napped by Twitter, they are all right now trying to figure out how to deal with subscriptions. So, for example, Tweetbot has a ton of subscription renewals that come up in as we record, a week and a half, 2 weeks, and so Paul, he's trying to figure out right now what his next step is. So pay attention to what the developers of your favorite apps are doing, because it's very possible that that Paul, in the case of Tweetbot, is just going to shut off subscriptions for Tweetbot, so no one gets charged. So just pay attention, because the whole thing about how much money you're paying for third-party clients, that's kind of up in the air right now too.
Well, you would probably want to just cancel right now. Why wait?
Yeah, or just cancel.
Barry in the chat room says Twitterific on iOS is dead. Twitterific on macOS still works.
Yeah, and I heard at one point that Spring still works. I don't know if that's still true. There's, and calling what Twitter put out a statement is
it's not even
an insult to the word statement.
It is. But, lying sacks of liars, that's what they do.
No, I mean,
especially when they're managed by space.
Jeff, in that regard, there's no one there to be a lying sack of liar, because Elon fired all of their communications staff.
Well, they put a tweet out though.
How hard is that?
Right,
well, apparently really hard, because it took them days.
It's days, and it's not an honest tweet, is what Jeff is saying.
I understand what he's saying. I'm just pointing out that anyone who's expecting clear communications from them, given that they don't have a communications department, it's sort of like you can't criticize them for something they don't have a capacity in order to do.
Of course you can.
We can
Yeah, then when
criticize them for not having that capacity as well.
That's
When did
right.
that-
You can criticize them for that, but I don't think you can criticize them for doing a job, because they don't have anyone to do that job.
Not going to
Right.
stop me from criticizing them.
I almost got through the whole show without one edit. And there it is.
No.
Oh well.
Okay.
Uh,
All right.
Well,
Let's
there's-
go around the room. Let's let folks know where they can find you, and then we're going to get out of here. So I'm going to reverse the order and start with Mr. Webb Bixby. Webb, it's great to have you here. Thanks so much for everything and for the discussion about Flexical. Or Fantastical,
Flexibits.
excuse me.
Yeah.
Flexibits, Fantastical. I think it's a legitimate discussion, and some good tips came out of it as far as subscriptions. Where can folks find you?
And also the part of it is that I had to check on myself and realize that the vendor did notify me, and I just overlooked it when I posted on Slack. So anyway, best way to reach me is probably through the Facebook in Webb Bixby, 2 words, WEB and BIXBY, and that's probably the best way. I'm also on that other social media platform with those liars that we'll just leave it there. So
Thank you, Webb. Good to have you.
good to be here.
Brad, it's a pleasure to have you. I'm not sure if you'll be back after some of this, but I'm hoping that you will.
I don't scare too easy, so
well, that's good because this group will do it to you.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah. How do folks get in touch with you?
Same thing. You can reach out to me on Facebook, Brad Meyer and Cupertino. Make sure you find the Brad Meyer and Cupertino. And that's the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Great. Thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for the invite.
Mr. Guy Searle, sans cat at the moment.
Yeah, she's doing bad things off camera that's making me very nervous.
Yeah, some of it was on camera behind you too.
Yeah, I know. I was seeing it. I was actually seeing it on the monitor that she was up on the shelves. That didn't make me happy.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear her. She's very silent when she wants to be. When I'm not playing with my cat, you can find me over on Twitter, Counter Social, and Mastodon as Mac Parrot. You can find me over on the YouTubes as Vert Shark. I do the weekly MyMac.com podcast with Gazmaz. And we're going to be talking, I think we're going to be talking tomorrow about the new Macs as well. So that should be out before the weekend. And yeah, that's about it. So yeah, me and my cat Jelly.
Thank you, Guy. Good to have you as always. Mr. Fuccio.
Be good.
67 billion transistors.
I mean, I started my career in the semiconductor industry, so this is just absolutely amazing, and it's these products are really remarkable feats of engineering, despite how poorly they may be marketed, but that's discussion for another time. So people want to get me, easiest way is on that Elon Musk property, Twitter, at Mark Fuccio, MarkFuccio, or LinkedIn, with the same name.
Great. Thanks so much, Mark. Really appreciate it. Jim Ray, we got to get your other headphones working. But until we do, where can folks find you?
These work. You can find me on the internet web tubes at provue.com, PROVUE. And you can reach me email at jim@provue.com. And now that's pretty much it. I need to set up one of those Mastodon thingies, I guess. But I haven't.
When you do, let us know. Thanks for being here, Jim. Mr. Eric Bolden, the first one to buy a new M2 Mac in this group. Congratulations.
And it's supposed to show up right before the show Tuesday of next week.
Unboxing.
We could have an unboxing.
Yeah.
I might not make it. I'm not sure. I'll probably be in one spot and it'll show up in another spot, and I'll get home and there'll be a thing that says, "If only you had been here to sign." We'll try tomorrow. So, I can be reached at EA Bolden at techhub.social on Mastodon.
Great. Thanks so much, Eric. Good to have you. Jeff Gammett, I'm glad you made it the whole way through, because I did hear your UPS beeping in the background. So I'm glad you were able to hang in there.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, the latest storm in Colorado started before we started recording, and I've already had UPS beeps and clicks, and so I'm glad I made it all the way through.
Jeff, that was sent from California with love.
Thank you.
Really.
I heard from another friend of mine, in Fort, whatever it is, just north of Boulder, that they are having Fort Collins, yes, that they're having snowstorm coming in imminently.
That would be this storm. Yep. Looking at a foot, some areas, maybe 2 feet of snow.
Oh, it's a good thing you got your hair cut now then.
I know. I needed to look good for the snow. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm supposed to tell people where to find me.
Whenever you get around to
it.
I've got to stand out my watch is saying, so I'm just a stop video, but I'm here listening.
Oh, good, because I want you to take notes on where to find me. Jay Gammett on all the socials. Just for disclosure, since the API debacle and Tweetbot stopped working, I haven't been on Twitter at all. So you can find me on Mastodon for sure, and Instagram and YouTube, and occasionally Stuff Auto posts onto Twitter. But seriously, I just haven't gone back to see what's going on because I can't use Tweetbot.
You want to mention Context Machine?
No.
Okay.
Yes. Brian Chaffin and I have teamed up for Context Machine. I suppose I should talk about other podcasts too. Anyhow, we're having a lot of fun with Context Machine. Here on Tuesdays, unless Chuck has finally had enough, and then it's been great being on the show with all of you. On Thursdays, The Big Show, and then Thursday evenings on In Touch with iOS. Unless Dave has had enough of me, in which case it's been great doing that show. And then on Fridays on the Mac Show.
Thank you, Jeff. We can never get enough. We can never get enough.
I don't understand, but okay, and thank you.
Neither do I, but we still can't get enough. Last but absolutely not least, Mr. David Ginsburg. David, it's great to have you. Where can folks connect with you?
It's great to be here. You can find me at In Touch with iOS at intouchwithios.com. YouTube channel is youtube.com/intouchwithios. I'm on Mastodon, on mastodon.cloud at DaveG65. I guess you could find me on Twitter, DaveG65 and In Touch with iOS. But that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Folks, this is Mac Voices Live. We do this every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time that is, wherever you are, at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV. And of course, we drop this show, usually cut up into pieces, into the feeds as well. This one may actually get into the feeds sooner and not cut up, just because it's some very timely information for those of you like Eric who are considering an M2 Mac. I'm gonna ride this for a while, Eric. So until the next time, and as always, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with Mac Voices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.